Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is VIN2428. It is a very special car as far as GSF history goes. This is a 2017 ultrasonic blue mica with LA20 black interior. This popped up at a dealer in Houston, Texas with only 3,200 miles, 3,197 miles. The car has had that since about 2020. So what was so special about this car is it was one of the 3 Laguna Seca pace cars owned by Lexus. And so they were numbers 11, 22, and 33. So these being Lexus owned, after they were retired as pace cars, they went on to work the lead follow for the driving school. This particular car had an identical twin. It was VIN 2430. So 2428, 2429 was not, 2430 is, and they're both identical cars. And I don't know if this one was either 11 or 33. I've identified number 22, but 11 or 33, that's what this is. And it also was driving school car number 23. As a previous person has sent me the information, there's literally the driving school car with the VIN on it and the driving school number. So I would say early on this car's had a hard track life, but it's basically had its entire existence right now has been at the track, being driven, you know, as a race car basically. And so what Lexus did to these 3 cars is they removed the front seats and they put racing seats in. It had harness bars in the back seats to hold and secure the harnesses. It had a light bar on the top and they drilled holes in the roof. Well, they left the holes when they sold them at auction, but they removed everything. They also put the cars on Tane coilovers. They had a Greddy exhaust, and they had the entire trunk was stripped of everything in it because they had radio and everything else, all the controls were in there. And so there were some holes in the trunk as well. These cars did not have paint protection film on them, so the front of them is pretty blasted. And the current dealer does not have any photos, nor do they have a price listed, but I can see from the auction photos in 2020, 2021, it had damage to the lower front bumper. It was completely peppered. It just, you know, you call it track rash is what it is. It's just lots of pebbles and stones and rubber and things over 3,200 miles of track driving. And 3,200 miles of track driving is a lot of track driving, but it's seen a pretty hard life early on. So car number 22 was the easy one to identify because it had Stratus gray interior, it has white interior, and it's a 2016. So it's a little bit different of a car, even though it's still ultrasonic blue mica. And it was still owned by Lexus, everything else. And all 3 of them were auctioned off almost at the same time in 2020. But a couple other things from the auction photos is they drilled holes in the carbon fiber trim piece to the left of the steering wheel, 4 buttons for the lights, turn them on and off. There is a hole in the steering wheel to have a button to turn the radio on and off to check your mic, things like that. So there are some modifications to this which damaged the car. Obviously the biggest is it has a hole in the roof, it has a hole in the trunk, it has a hole in the steering wheel, it has holes on the trim. You know, there's a lot going on there. So obviously that's going to devalue the car. All of the original decals are gone. The trunk is still stripped. You know, it would be a great car to turn into or keep as a track car at this point. This car was one of the cars that was on my list of kind of cars that just kind of disappeared. And so this car's been kind of unknown where it was for the last 4 years. It was sold at an auction. It was titled in Missouri, and it was sold at an auction, at a dealer auction in California in early 2021. Haven't seen anything since then. I ran a new Carfax and a new auto check, a new Epic VIN, and there's nothing that's changed other than this dealer. And I found it for sale through this dealer through visor.vin, visor.vin, which it's basically like Auto Tempest where it searches all throughout the web for anything that comes up for sale. This one was posted about a week ago, and I've contacted the dealer and they haven't responded back to me, so I have no other information as far as price goes. The name of the dealer is Motor Trade in Houston, and that's kind of all I have to go off of. They have it on their website, but no pictures. They have the VIN, they have the mileage, and that's it, 3,197 miles. So onto the production statistics. Outside of it being a Laguna Seca pace car, is 269 of the 2,348 cars produced for the US 49 were ultrasonic blue mica. It's 8X1 paint code. 122 had LA20 interior. So specific for 2017, 35 out of 342 cars were ultrasonic blue. Already low production. And then out of those 35, only 17 had black interior. So blue with black interior, 2017, there are only 17 of these cars that exist in this combo. So definitely on the rarer side. Carfax, Epic VIN, and AutoCheck. So Carfax shows this as a one owner, no accident, but they also disclose at the auction altered suspension, which is because it's lowered. Epic VIN shows it as a two owner, no accident, with the last event being in the auction in California in 2021. AutoCheck shows this as a one owner, no accident car. Obviously Lexus does not still own it. It was sold at an auction. It's probably still, doing that dealer transfer title thing. So it's probably still a one owner car, Lexus being the sole owner of this car. Some of the Lexus driving school cars, they never titled. And then the first owner became whoever bought it from the dealer. That was not the case with this. This was a Lexus titled, Lexus owned car, and then it was sold at an auction. So Lexus no longer owns it, but on paper they technically still do until there's a new owner. So previous sales, there are none because this was shipped and delivered directly to Lexus, wasn't dealer prepped, wasn't anything. Lexus got it right away. And as I said, they owned it until the auction when it was sold in early 2021, and its whereabouts have been unknown since then until now when we know it's sitting down in Houston, Texas. On to the pictures. So normally I would go over the current pictures. I don't have anything, but if you search the VIN, take this VIN and Google it, you can see all of the auction pictures. A lot of the Eastern European sites, they capture all of the photos when they come along, so that's where I got some of these. I would assume, hopefully, that this car was properly stored, but if it's been sitting for the last 4 years unused, hopefully it didn't have gas that went bad in it, ruin the fuel pumps, the direct injectors, things like that. That can be really expensive. Obviously, it would need to be caught up on maintenance. Assume it needs brakes, tires, things like that, because in the auction photos, you can see they auctioned them off still with melted rubber on the tires, but they showed a lot of the damage, and there is a lot of damage on this car, not just from the modifications, but on the front end. There's issues. But at the auction photos, it still had the harness bar, it still had the holes in the dash, it had the holes in the steering wheel, the peppered front end, the damaged front end. And so there's not a whole lot to go on other than the old auction photos, but since it has the same mileage, you can kind of assume, unless this dealer has done any prep to improve it and recondition it, it's basically the same way you see in these photos here. Service history, there's only 2 entries for the service history for this car, and it's February and April of 2018. February of 18, 366 miles, replaced the rear bumper cover, that says a lower rear bumper cover, and front and rear brakes at 360 miles. Again, pretty indicative that this was a track car, and so no surprises seeing the brakes are replaced with 360 miles on them. April of 2018, 501 miles, the JLB recall was done, and they zeroed the steering, and I'm guessing they did an alignment, something wasn't right, so the steering was centered perfectly. And that's it. So as far as would I buy this car, the big question, of course, is the price, and is this dealer going to do any reconditioning, like filling in the holes in the roof, which requires removing the headliner. There's going to be some money that needs to be spent on this car, replacing the dash piece, replacing the steering wheel, fixing the holes in the trunk. There's things like that where this car would probably be better suited as a track car. And so if you're going to treat it like a track car, I would look at it more like a car that's like a rebuilt salvage title car, because this car is almost like value be damned, because it's been driven so hard, so aggressively. It has so much that it's going to need to recondition it to bring it back to new. But maybe they do that and repaint the bumper, new brakes, new tires, bring the maintenance up to date, fix all the stuff inside. But then you're still going to have to find all of the used trunk trim. And if some dealer's going to put this up there for $80,000 or something because it only has 3,000 miles, I could totally see a dealer doing something like that too. So that's why I said I don't know where the price would be. If a dealer does something like that, I would not be surprised to see it for $75,000 or $80,000 because it only has 3,000 miles on it. But as it sits, based on the auction photos, because it's still the same mileage, but I would put this car probably in like the mid to high 30s, just because there's so much. I mean, it is a cool bit of history, but there is so much that it needs to be done, and there is a huge question mark on how it looks now. So I don't know if you could get it cheap enough. I would, if it were me and my money, I would turn this back into a track car, go enjoy it, drive it like it's already been driven, which is hard, and just go enjoy it. Let the front end be peppered. Let the holes be in the roof, or add another light bar back. Somebody could buy it and add the Laguna Seca decals back on it, which I think would be super awesome, because that's what the car originally was, and there's only 3 of them. So I am in contact with one of the owners, the owner of number 22, but that's how I found out originally about that there were 3 of these cars. But it's a neat piece of history, but I don't think it's a valuable piece for these cars. And so I guess do with that info what you will, but VIN 2428. If something changes, I'll do an update video, but I thought it was a cool piece to share, especially because it's for sale, but a big question mark on the price. So again, 2428. Thanks again for watching, guys. We'll see you soon.